Case can be here tonight? Okay, 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Tina, if you've got roll call.
Yep.
We will dispense with the pledge unless there's an objection. No objection. Someone want to move approval of the agenda, please?
I'll move to approve the agenda. Second motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is approved. Old business, Public Works Police Facility update.
The only thing I have to report on my side is a timeline that I asked for from Angela last week. So she's waiting for the legal paperwork so she can request closing instructions. She must have stated this to me earlier. She replied that after the resolution was approved by the council in the May meeting, that closing instructions can take 30 to 45 days. So she states as far as those plans are at the state office for review, she doesn't have any updates on the timeline at that point. So we're at just over the 30-day mark right now.
Okay. We'll be tacking on another 15.
Yeah, so we might know something by the July meeting. But that's as best as I can give you guys as an update.
Anything from you, Mike, on that? You heard anything?
I haven't heard anything at all. Sitting and waiting.
Does that mean, does this start to look like we're pushing this out another
Here,
year till spring?
I don't know, when our committee met with Steve, when we were talking about timelines early in the spring and we were concerned for funding closing, you know, we all said, yes, we can still get foundation work done in the fall and be building stuff into the winter, and that's not ideal, but it is a possibility.
Oh, June.
So I haven't gotten anything else since that.
Okay. And wasn't Shonda coming? We can skip that, or?
I would skip it because she had a construction meeting this afternoon, so
okay.
I anticipated her being here tonight. She's just probably running late. I'm sure they're busy.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Kurt, I'm up to you. Local sales tax campaign.
I think that's the last time I talked to you guys. We had talked a little bit about that process. And so me and Christine had met and kind of went over some initial steps to just get started. Basically, one of the biggest chores is the process now requires a city to list all the projects that you might use those sales tax monies for. That's new from a few years ago. I'm not sure now. I know when International Falls did theirs the year before last, I think that was the first year you had to actually create this list. And our understanding is if it's not on that list, you can't use monies toward it. So you have to look into that 20-year window that sales tax is activated as to what you might want to use that money for. So International Falls approached it and basically listed every project that could possibly be done in the city that would be eligible. Well, they were going to generate maybe 15 to 20 million over that 20-year period. Well, their list was close to 100 million, I think. So it's kind of like a great big wish list. And so that probably makes the most sense for you guys to, as part of that application process, to list anything that you might want to use that money for. It may be very doubtful that you will, but let's put it on the list just in case, as long as it's an eligible improvement. So that's kind of going to be the biggest chore. Me and Caleb, one of our young engineers, are going to work trying to put that list together. We'll have a list kind of as we get towards the end of the summer, early fall, and then we'll kind of want you guys to go through that list and say, you know what, I don't even want this on our list. Or, hey, did you guys think of this that we might do in 10 years or something? So we can vet that list and feel comfortable with it to include in the application. So that's one of the bigger chores that we'll be working on. Another thing that me and Christina talked about, part of the application process now is there has to be some discussion about the regional impact or significance of your improvements. You have to show that you're pulling in regional money with the sales tax. But you also have to show some benefit to the region as well. So kind of a straightforward example of that would be you're improving roads that everyone throughout the region uses. That would be pretty straightforward. Maybe you have, we talked about maybe improvements out at the campground. Well, that's a regional use thing. So I'm going to do some research, look at some other cities, how they handle that narrative, and then help Christina with that narrative.
We also included things like resurfacing the pedestrian trail. That's desperately needed to have.
And that's another definitely more regional use.
Other things that we were not including in our original capital improvement plan to try to get that regional significance impact, and just trying to think outside the box for long term too, whether it includes infrastructure that could go out further outside the boundary of the municipality if it ends up being something that's going to be an annexed property in the future. Our library building, things that we didn't include in our original CIP that we're now starting to consider as an entity that needs to have future improvements on now.
So if I heard you correctly, Christina, you're talking about water and sewer lines to annex more properties in?
Kurt and I discussed that, yes.
Yeah.
We discussed some of that property on the northeast side. We discussed the Quiet Meadows property. We discussed a couple others so that we can keep that detachment issue that we've been having the last 2 years as a potential to happen in the future.
You can't put something on your list that extends beyond your corporation limits because you don't have the legal authority to be spending money out there.
Okay.
So it would be more like prepping utilities, maybe bring them basically to the corporation limit so you could easily extend and so forth. So we'll put those types of projects on there.
But the campground had a big conversation because, like Kurt said, it has a regional significance to the community and it brings people in. And that's something that we can utilize it for from our understanding of the narrative, but we'll have to do some little deeper dive into that. So then we started thinking about other things other than what Mike had already discussed, his wants and needs for the campground in the future. Do we extend water and electric to all of our sites? Do we improve things like the fish cleaning shack, the streets? Do we pave all our alleys in town? Things like that. Things that we never considered when we first adopted the CIP back in 2015.
So to have a regional significance, that is its key. I mean,
It is a big portion of the new revised
So, I mean, when you-
resolution, yes.
let's face it, like, some of the road, like the road behind the school, yuck.
Well,
But
and
that's not is that how
But-
we,
But
Make that
our
regional.
understanding is that not every penny has to be spent towards something that benefits the whole region. It's just
Right.
that you have uses that you're going to use that would benefit. So maybe we do a residential street that really has no regional significance other than for those people. It could even be a dead end street. It could still be one of their projects listed. There needs to be some projects, is our understanding, that people outside the community would benefit from. And that's what I want to dig into and see. Since it's fairly new, I want to look at what some other cities maybe have done for their narratives that have gotten approved. Like, did they just have one project really that was going to have some kind of significance to the overall region, or just so we understand that we're doing what we need to do to get that approved. We don't want that one thing to hang us up that, hey, you didn't show enough, regional benefit to get this. So
Because when we're just looking at infrastructure on roads and streets, one of the things that we're already having an issue with is in the last 3 to 4 years, the major county roads that run through town have already been improved upon, and we've improved most of the services underneath. So if we're only looking at, a transportation level of the regional significance, the county has already done their due diligence on the roads that are inside of town. So now we have to think about that regional significance for people that are traveling, that sales tax is going to impact us, that we can get the revenue from in a different way. Not just the traveling of the people that are here and visiting.
things even like your sewer and water, even though it services inside your corporation limits, benefits the community because your sewer and water provides clean sewer and water for the school, which provides regional education. So, I mean, looking at it, there's indirect benefits to most improvements that you have in town. So we don't think it's a very difficult hurdle. I just want to look at some other ones. When we did International Falls, we had a lot of projects that there's really no case for them to be any kind of regional benefit. They were residential streets and those types of things in our list. But we also, because International Falls has a lot of collector type roads that you have out of town trucks using and those types of things. So there was tons of projects on there that were infrastructure projects that would benefit people from out of town. So we just want to make sure that we do enough for the city of Blackduck that doesn't somehow hang up.
Okay, just a few ideas off the top of my head. So like improvements to the Wayside Rest, that would be regional.
We discussed that, yeah.
Okay, and then also for the future campsites, that would be for regional as well.
Sure.
We
Yep,
discussed that as well.
Okay, and then the 3-pond system for upgrades and potential.
Yeah, again, looking at your wastewater system, it indirectly benefits such a big, wider area than just your.
Okay.
I mean, it supports businesses, it support workers that live out of town, so.
Keep the lake clean.
So those are kind of the two things that we're kind of focusing on now. As we move on a little closer, we'll talk a little bit more about community education, kind of getting the word out. But it's a little early to start that process now when we're looking at an application and doing it next fall. So as we go through the summer, we'll start discussing maybe when do we want to have that and how do we want to approach that. As far as letting the community know they're going to be voting on it, why you're doing it, what's the benefits of it.
Exactly, because that's the difficult point is when we want to talk about it, to be able to say, yeah, the sales tax is going to go to roads, and then that's the end of that conversation. It's really nice and simple.
Right. And there have been a couple other municipalities recently that have had it on their ballot. And the language that's in that ballot question has changed in the last 2 years since they changed this requirement. So when we get to that 22 general election, that vote might look different. That makes sense. But on a timeline standpoint, we need to get the resolution approved and submitted to the state when they start the 22 session. So we have to have it by January 31st, 22, so that they can approve it first before it goes on your ballot in the fall of 22. So when we're starting to think about when we're going to really impact the voters, no offense to you, Kurt, but in my mind, it doesn't make any sense to start talking to people about it now because they're going to forget before the next election.
Agreed. But
Feels-
this summer,
It feels like something maybe goes on your website sometime next winter. And then sometime in midsummer, maybe you have an actual, either public hearing or something where people can come in and ask questions and understand. And then maybe even like maybe as it gets even closer in the fall, you have some type of mailing or something.
Right before if you have other ideas that you think might, qualify, or you're wondering if it does, shoot them to myself or Kurt as we're assembling this laundry list, because we just brainstormed for like an hour and came up with a lot of different things.
Well, I just have a question. So if the golf course is having all these problems with their water systems out there, couldn't some of that money go to help them with water pumps
The
and all that
irrigation
kind of?
of that. We can look into it. It's a possibility.
Because they do have tournaments and stuff, I mean, if we're gonna keep the golf course going, we're not gonna put it down evidently. So if you're going into the water, you need all the water pumps going, and he's always having problems with all that stuff. Outdated. That would be something to look into too.
I see on the 29th of golf course is having a meeting to discuss the future too.
mhm.
see what comes out of that.
Any other questions for Kurt on this? Okay,
All right, well, I'll probably be back in a couple months and probably have a start of a list by then. And we'll talk a little bit more
don't stay away so long.
I'll come anytime you want. Tina's always, doesn't always give me the invite, so.
I knew it.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Thank you, Kurt. Since you guys are here now, we'll double back.
Sorry.
How was the meeting?
What meeting?
The construction meeting.
Oh, it was abbreviated because it turned out not to be a great time for us today to do it at 2. So we've changed it to an 8:00 a.m. on Thursday and try to keep that on Thursdays before we open the store because we were too busy to really spend, really.
To really get our questions answered and
Right.
get involved in what's going on.
Right, we did, I did talk to, Austin and Tom and, got some dates that I had some worrisome, things happening or potentially happening during our Backwoods Bash time frame and our Labor Day weekend time frame. Those were the two that I was concerned about mostly. And they didn't feel that 2 or 3 days either way would hurt the timeline. If you're talking 2 or 3 weeks where you're pushing stuff out or around.
So they're not gonna be there they'll try to like pack up, bug out for that weekend.
Well, they're generally don't work on weekends, but it was slated for the bar to be torn down or like demo the flooring behind the bar and have that tore up during that time frame.
Okay.
And then have the sales floor tore up during the Labor Day weekend. So I said, please no. So, yeah. So it's a matter of 9/2 moving it to 9/7.
Okay.
So, yeah. There'll be, as we get moving on more, there'll be, there'll be movement depending on, getting when the materials are gonna get here is going to change the schedule. Like, your flooring materials, that kind of thing. Kitchen, off sale fixtures. Racks and, if you're talking fixtures to them, that's lighting fixtures or whatever. But
For us, it's the.
our display fixtures, yeah.
Anything else?
We do have one brand new AC unit. So we have 2 working units.
Yes, now
One new
it's,
one and one old one still hooked up. So we do have 2 working units.
and now it's 60 degrees, so
It doesn't make a difference.
It's gonna warm up.
yes.
So just to keep you on that update, we did get one new one in and the other one he had hooked up prior, it's still running.
Oh, and congratulations, Melissa, on passing your test for your food safety license. Certified by the state. I got to bring it with me.
Yeah,
Too long to get it laminated.
He's like, oh.
That's my bad. All right,
anything, I don't know, any other questions?
we all set for the bash? Everything's got DJs or?
One step at a time here, okay?
Not gonna order a DJ unless I know that my bar's gonna be able to be open. That's counterproductive, but it should be good. It should be good. We can talk to Jacob Lee and the city probably can help us out. We'll be at the Wayside Rest of your tent.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else? All right. Yeah,
Well, not for sure yet, but it sounds like they want to keep that money for 10 years, so they don't have to have any more levies for the library.
Meaning they won't ask for levy in
For the next 10 years.
for the next 10 years.
It
So,
hasn't been decided yet, but that's the route we're over 3/4 of them are going.
I don't foresee that covering our city. It's just not possible. What is it, 63,000?
yeah, that was, it was 67, wasn't it?
Well,
Either way.
we typically budget about $14,000 to $15,000 for their levy. That covers 4 years.
That's just what they,
That's what that budget finance committee came up with.
it's, nothing's written in stone yet.
That's just conversation at this time.
Yeah.
So can I ask if they'll have an idea if that's gonna take effect in 22? Because we're getting close to the point of getting ready for budgets. Not sure.
They're pretty vague about, it was just an idea that they threw out there. So it's not like set in stone.
Okay.
But that's just kind of what they're throwing around right now. Which they still, let's leave it at that.
I know,
Hurry up and wait.
I know.
Haven't they been like doing this for months and months?
Yes, and.
Pretty
yes.
much.
March
Yeah.
is when you first found out about it? They've only had one meeting since then.
This would be the second.
This would be the second. Okay, my mistake.
Oh, onward. American Rescue Plan.
Okay, so I included a couple of new League of Minnesota City slides with you guys. I had also attended a conference breakout when I was down at the clerk conference last week in regards to the American Rescue Act plan funding. Where I'm sitting right now for our municipalities, I have submitted the request for the funding. I needed to have it authorized based upon what our last two budgets were by the state auditors reporting. And then they're finalizing their number of municipalities. You may or may not have seen that the League of Minnesota Cities, that the state of Minnesota just recognized a brand new city. So that's going to lower our number of money that goes. The last email I received was based on what our 2019 census or 2019 census numbers are. They're looking at 833 people. So right now they're looking at, I think it's like $82,000 that we might be getting. So it's dropped significantly since the very first estimate when the bill was signed. That again has not been, certified yet, so that number can still change. I'll have two forms in your packet and the consent agenda just for review that you guys need to look at in July, and that's just the American Rescue Plan Act. As your financial responsible person of the staff, I needed to sign and say that, yes, we will spend the money the way it's supposed to. And it's not the state of Minnesota that's, auditing all this, it's the IRS. So basically signed my life away to the feds saying, yes, I'll make sure that the city uses the money appropriately. As as it pertains to how the funding can be used, I did learn a couple of new things that I wanted to share with you guys that I thought might be appropriate funding options. One of them is an eligible expense is economic development. So my first brainstorm is, can some of this money can be used for part of a demolition project for downtown commercial development? Of course, these are just brainstormed ideas for me. The other one is that there's an element that's approved housing investments. So my other thought is, now that we're starting to resurrect the HRA, and some of this money be put into our HRA fund to help out. So that's another brainstormed idea. Another eligible expense is for child care provider assistance. And if we can do anything to improve on and help them out, whether it becomes a grant or a loan or free money, however it is, I need to look into it a little bit more. On the replaced revenue item, there is a calculator out there on the League of Minnesota Cities website that helps the cities define if you had a revenue loss. What I can tell you is my understanding about the revenue loss is to avoid any future cuts to government services. So they look at the revenue loss as your entire city minus your water, sewer, and liquor funds. So if the cities can remove a certain percentage of revenue loss over the in the 2020 year over 19, and it has to be a specific percentage, then that amount of money that was lost can be used for whatever the city chooses to use it for. There's no strings. You don't even have to worry about the eligible expenses. That calculation I still have to do and figure out where my resources are coming from. But I learned that on Thursday afternoon, which is interesting to me because some places, some cities have things in their general fund that we don't, that actually do make money. You might remember when John Roscoe was here doing our audit, he made a note that, you know, our golf course is different. We track it differently than some cities do. Some cities put funds like the golf course in their Parks and Rec, which is housed underneath the general fund, and we don't do that. We look at it as an enterprise fund. But if for some reason we had it in there and it was a loss in that umbrella of lost revenue I'm talking about, that would make sense for it to be an eligible expense. That kind of makes sense, guys. I might be talking in circles. So that's just a concept I've been working around, but
Quick question, Christina.
yeah, Jason.
On that note, is there any way that, when does the golf course would have to be into the public works department?
Into the general fund.
Correct, in order to use that, like if we put it over today or tomorrow?
It would have already had to been, because they're looking at your loss of your lost revenue in 2020 over your 19.
Okay,
So it would have already had to have done that.
we couldn't like use it for the end of this year?
I'd have to check with the treasury, but I'm guessing no.
I mean,
Just
I know
because
Mike
we've
don't
already-
want that headache, but
Just because of how we've already reported it to the state auditor, they already know that.
Okay.
So I doubt we can fudge around with that.
okay.
Yeah. One of the takeaways I got from these last two webinars is, you know, the League of Minnesota Cities and other financial specialists like Ellers and there's another one out there. They're really encouraging municipalities because you have a very long timeline to use this funding, not to set your plans right now. Be very thought-provoking on what you're going to want to spend this money for. Because even if you're going to use it on a project like a water and sewer infrastructure project, a portion of it, if you started the project up till 24, you have till 26 to use that funds if it's a big project. So there's a lot of things that we need to continue talking about with this. And I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks, when I get some really good nailed down ideas, I almost want to start maybe pulling just a couple of counselors together and doing a smaller committee meeting on this, and then reporting it back as a work session idea. Because the first payment is gonna come mid-July, and that's gotta set in a special fund. And we really can't touch it until we really know what we want to do the money with. And the other half isn't gonna come until July of 22. So even if the city doesn't touch any of that money that we receive next month in 2021, there's no penalty for that. So I just want to be very cautious what we spend the money on, because we have so many different projects going on in the town right now that may or may not even start this year, that I would be upset if like we have the opportunity to possibly use it for the Public Works Police facility in some fashion, and then spend it and we don't have it. That's where my brain is going with this money. I just want everybody to be really cautious about it, because when CARES funding came, it was like, you have a deadline of 6 months, and you got to use it. Now they really stressed to be very thought-provoking on what you're going to use the money for, and plan it out and budget it out. They also strongly encouraged the cities to budget it into their, if they're gonna do anything with this year's money in 22, put it in your budget. So when we certify our levy, we're doing budgets for next year, we'll say, okay, if we get this much money, we're gonna use it for whatever. And when we work on our budgets, it's already there. So we've got it almost earmarked for that project.
It just seems like a long time.
That you have the money.
No, I mean, it's a long time to 2026 is,
It is. It is.
and when you consider, what, we're down to 83,000,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and we're only getting half of it.
And, you know, like,
So the other thing that I did was I also reached out to Tom Berry, is the county administrator. They suggested reaching out to other municipalities or other county, because there's going to be so much overlapping funding between different government entities, that it would be a shame for us to start earmarking it for something that the county can already fund. So I reached out to Tom and asked him if he would be willing to share what the county board is doing with their funding. And maybe I can even get in with Bemidji so that we can kind of find out as a region what their money is going to be used for, so we don't start overlapping. Or that we can help the people that are in town, if they can use it for anything else, that they're going to issue it countywide, that our residents know about it too. And again, Tom and the county board are pretty much in the same position we are right now. They've got a small committee that's working on ideas of what they know they can use the money for right now. And they're really starting to plan it out. They're not taking any drastic steps right now to really jump into the money.
no, I'd wait till we have at least both halves before you
Really jump into
before
it.
you really start tagging it.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that statement, Max. There's nothing saying that we have to use any of it in 21.
So you just put it, start another account, but what do you do?
It
Put it
becomes,
in a special fund or?
yeah, it just goes into a special fund.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so.
But that's they say that's one of the ineligible uses, right? Bolstering rainy day accounts.
Well, to pad pensions, to pay debt, yes, you can't do that.
But it
So
can sit there.
it can sit there. Yep. You can't put it into a CD.
You can't make money with it.
You can't make a ton of money on it, but you know, the general fund has its own reserve account. And it could get, you know, revenued in the general fund as we would normally do any grants or federal funding in this calendar year, and then approved by resolution to move it over into a reserve account until the city was ready to utilize it.
roundabouts.
pretty much.
I'm gonna put some of those in.
Yeah,
Right here,
we need a couple roundabouts, right?
Literally.
Oh, well, I'll get a phone call for that one. Right?
There are some cities that are asking questions like, can this funding be used for like a fire truck or a piece of equipment? And
That would be
pretty-
great.
they're very tight-lipped on saying yes. Everybody keeps saying, well, maybe. And the only reason they say maybe is because if a municipality had that revenue loss, then that's a yes, because again, there's absolutely no strings attached to that money. But only that percentage of money could be utilized for something like that.
So realistically, Lee, Christina, how long before you'll have a breakdown of, did we lose a significant portion?
Of this money.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, are you asking
Did we,
about revenue?
did we make our percentage?
Oh, I haven't even looked yet.
That's what I mean. How long?
Give me till like the end of the week at least, since today was my first day back.
No, I,
Didn't we use that already for the percentage of loss in 2020, the last care fund?
This is totally different.
different.
This is completely different.
So it would, but, all right, I guess I'm confused on that then. Because I swear that we already used like the golf course, the pond, and all of that loss.
But that's a separate bucket of money.
So we can get that again?
No,
Okay,
no, that wouldn't have been included in this.
okay.
So whatever we got last year in 2020 for the CARES funding that assisted with the enterprise funds in the whole city, as long as it showed whatever those eligible expenses were, we could use it. But we did not qualify for a revenue loss,
Oh, okay,
okay, in
Okay.
2020. And that was mainly because there was no revenue loss. The liquor store had a good year. It may have lost profit, but it didn't lose revenue. So
yeah,
the way this funding is working is different, because the revenue loss has to show under the general government canopy.
okay.
It can include those enterprises like water, sewer, and liquor
Okay.
store.
So it has to show a negative aspect, not
Right.
just we lost $100,000.
Right.
Okay,
Think of it this way, okay, so the general fund covers, administration, police, public safety, the library, some of our park, that type of thing. It has to show that if you have that revenue loss, it would be a huge detriment to those essential services that the general fund covers.
Okay.
Putting it at a point of, not being able to have it anymore.
understand.
That's how they're looking at it.
Okay,
Is
that makes sense.
can we continue to go forward? Like if we had such a revenue loss that we can't open the library anymore, if we completely funded it and it wasn't part of the county, that would be something that would be a loss to the community.
Just got a sneaky suspicion. It's not gonna be as big as.
Mhm.
Well, no, I mean, and it's unfortunate, but we are, a small town and we don't have very large populations. So
We
that big pie gets
Came
pretty
through.
small when there's a lot of pies,
we
people
came
to
through
feed it.
pretty well,
Yeah.
actually.
and you want that big, you want all that revenue to pay for everything else. So,
Mhm.
the liquor store is paying for a lot of stuff.
It is, and you can't, it specifically says you can't replace this, you can't use this money to replace property taxes.
Mhm.
So, we can't think of it that way to reduce your levy. It says it right there.
All right,
No.
That would be what I just said. That's a no.
you got anything else on this, guys, or we just start thinking of ideas, keep it in the back of your head?
As I get information as it goes by, if there's stuff from the league or whatever, I'll continue to send it to you guys. if you come up with ideas, just shoot it my way and we'll keep working on it.
Okay. What are we doing with the stump jumpers?
So we haven't talked about this public parking lot for the Snowmobile Club for over a year now. So I wanted to bring everybody up to speed on this and just do a little back history because I know, Don, you're new. So back in, was it early 2020, we got this awarded. On the behalf of the Blackduck Stump Jumper Snowmobile Club, the city applied for a grant through the DNR and the federal trails to acquire a piece of property down near Rudnicki's Tractor Ranch there from the current property owner to create a public parking lot as an access point to the trails. The city, in order to get the funding in the grant, the city had to apply for the finances and the grant. So the grant was approved. In the process of working on the final paperwork, which was all due by February of this year, that all finalized. So now we're at the point of starting to be able to acquire the property. I had our current legal counsel review all the documentation from the DNR, and there is a clause in there that states that although the intention of the city was to be a pass-through, the stump jumpers completely plan on paying for this piece of property. We can't let them purchase the property, the city has to. So I've been working with legal counsel to draft a purchase agreement between the city of Blackduck and MAC Properties to purchase this property. And then the stump jumpers will just still reimburse the city after we get MAC Properties paid for the property. After that is all done, parking lot is completed and all the funding is done, the city will own this parking lot. They'll own the property. The conversation with the current president of the Blackduck Stump Jumpers is they are okay with the ownership being in the city's name, but they would like to have a lease agreement with the city so that it can be considered, controlled, and maintained by them, and that they can improve on it as they needed to when they originally wanted to buy it out for themselves, but needed the grant to do so.
Quick question,
Yes.
who holds the liability for property damage?
The city would, but in the lease agreement, we can put some additional language in there.
Please.
And I haven't started that point,
Okay.
but that is a very good suggestion. And I'm sure the attorney would probably advise the same way.
Okay.
So what I included in your packet tonight is just the purchase agreement that I got drafted by Joe Lango. I've sent to MAC Properties. He has signed it. But based on the resolution that was approved so the city could apply for the grant on the stump jumpers' behalf, the full city council needs to approve the purchase agreement. It can't be, although it says in the resolution and the financial holder of the grant and for the money for the city, the whole city needs to approve this purchase agreement. So it's gonna slow
The whole city?
no, just your board.
Okay.
The board needs to approve the purchase agreement. My apologies. So you're gonna see this purchase agreement under my administration report on the 7th of July. So I'm strongly advising to approve it so I can continue. There will be another note underneath this that will probably happen on the July 7th meeting as well. You may have looked through this and noted that that property down there that Matt Sparby owns has changed its look since the vacation of the roads. He has sold the one parcel to Corey Rednicki and is, of course, working on selling this parcel to the city of Blackduck. He inadvertently, I know this is on the agenda, but it's related, did not submit the new parcel descriptions to the Planning Commission last month for approval and a public hearing to approve the changes of the legal descriptions. So when I meet with Planning Commission on Wednesday of this week, I'm gonna request that they approve that realignment of the parcels and hopefully do the public hearing on the 7th, so everything will fall into place. Because you can't sell the city the property the way the purchase agreement states without the parcel being logged the way they're supposed to, the way that he has it now.
So this is the purchase agreement that you want us to,
On the 7th of July,
so this will have the updated verbiage.
and it does. It
For-
currently does.
Okay, so it'll have the lease agreement on how much the city's gonna charge them.
It will not have the lease agreement because this is the purchase agreement with the property owner.
Okay.
The lease agreement will go with the Snowmobile Club.
Okay.
Once everything is done.
And then the monies collected from that will go into which fund?
I believe I'm gonna run it through parks, so it'll go through the general fund. It'll get revenued into the general fund from the stump jumpers and out our way.
And how much are we leasing for?
Well, that's the conversation that the board, you guys can discuss at that point. I mean, I know the current Snowmobile Club president's like, can we have like 100-year lease so this doesn't go? The legal counsel said 100 years is a little extreme, 50 years is a little extreme, 20 years is fine. But, you know, it's up to the city what they want to do. Snowmobile Club was totally fine with that.
You're trying to purchase the property for 40,000, it says?
Yes. And that was the agreed upon price when the purchase agreement was drafted originally back in 18, I think 18 or 19 was the first run of this grant. So Matt actually kept the same price at that point. If you reviewed the state appraised value for the DNR on this property, it is
Higher.
it's way undervalued at this point.
Oh. He's not changing or selling anything else out there right now, is he? Just-
My understanding, Max, is that he is selling this piece to the city, he's selling that piece to Corey Rudnicki, and everything surrounding he's keeping in his family.
All right. Curiosity.
The old page on that.
No, Matt Sparby owns that. Yes, he does. That's southwest along 72.
Yeah.
Yes. What you see that's orange and yellow
Yeah.
is in Matt Sparby's name.
Oh. okay.
Behind it could be pages.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
only that section is what Matt owns.
He owns a hill there,
Yes,
the green hill there. Page owns.
right. But that's not even, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Too bad we couldn't get the planning commission to take over the lease like they do with the rest of the property within the cities where they can make money and improve the city upon.
I missed something.
Yeah, okay, who leases Blackduck Clinic?
The Blackduck Development.
Or the development court should take the lease. But they won't do that.
They would have had to apply for the grant.
Okay. So that's on us no matter what.
Mhm.
Okay.
They needed to have the city be the
Yeah.
Yeah,
agent.
yeah, the fiscal agent.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of doing something fairly long term so that we don't have to keep revisiting it.
I know what the president is talking about. He's just concerned that, you know, if he's not here in 10 years, you know, and their board changes, who's their treasurer and everything. And then they've been very flexible with this whole process. I mean, last fall, some of the final grant requirements that had to be done, they had to outsource out because it was not part of my expertise, and they paid for all of that.
So the city is not trying to make money on this property. We're just trying to lease it to them. That's it. And we're just trying to make 40,000 back? No, because they're paying for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even whatever the grant doesn't, because the grant's not 100% grant,
Right.
whatever the grant doesn't supply, the stump jumpers.
Right.
So again, the city is just its fiduciary.
Right, I know, I'm just trying to think, I mean, what's the point of even leasing it for a dollar amount? I mean, if we're not taking ownership of it, we're not taking
Pays
liability
the
of
taxes
it.
on it.
That's the only part we're gonna lose,
Yeah,
is the property taxes on it.
so I'd say we just do the property tax for the lease. And divide that by the year and it's just put it in the contract or the lease agreement, it says it'll fluctuate per tax percentage increase.
We're not even gonna talk about that till next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I won't have the lease agreement for you guys.
The lease won't be, yeah.
Yeah, you
it's
gotta
always
make,
out
you gotta
there.
have it more than property taxes because you got administration costs here, you know, there's extra costs
Right.
involved.
Okay, I mean, city's not gonna maintain it, right?
No,
Okay, so I mean, yeah, I get where you're going.
you know, you gotta cover the city's butt a little bit.
Yeah,
When you're talking about the property tax loss too, though, once it becomes a municipal piece of property, there's no property tax on it. So if you wanted to sit here and estimate what its value is now, times the number of lease years you want to go, yeah, you could do that. But, I would like the board to consider what was the original intent when the stump jumpers came to the board saying we'd like to do this inside the town. What kind of, benefit does it give us? It gives a public area for our ATVers that are coming to visit and our snowmobilers that come to visit the town, a safe location to park as a trailhead.
hey, Mike,
Yes, sir.
is there any damage to the city property or any of the citizens' property from the ATVs or snowmobiles when the snow melts away?
Not that I've heard.
Okay, so I mean, it's really no negative impact.
And even if there was on most trailheads and grant made trails, those clubs get fundings from the DNR to improve the trails anyway. So if there's a private piece of property or a public piece of property that needs improvement, then those established clubs can get funding from the state to do any improvements they need to keep the trails. That's what your trail stickers that you put on your snowmobiles and your ATVs every 2 years actually fund.
You know, that is a good deal if the four-wheelers can use it too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you can.
Yep.
Pull it with your trailer, everybody unloads it, goes, comes back to a safe place, you can park it, because where else you gonna?
Yep. And already we have people,
Yeah.
pretty much, they'll
They have
use the
to
liquor
use it.
store or
Yeah.
they'll use
Grocery
country,
store.
restaurant 71. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a really good idea. Because there's not.
Well, there is, they're just not using the right area. So with that being the designated unload load area, does that mean that we could kick them out of the town for the spots if they're using it? Or since it's business, it'd be up to them.
the private, if it's their private parking lot, it's up to them.
Okay, well, I'm just saying this, like, we don't want them to do it in the pond if they're gonna keep their vehicle there for 12 hours and not be at the pond. No.
And they really don't.
They do pretty good. Yeah, they do pretty
They're
good.
they're pretty good. I think most people right now are probably heading off from, someplace outside the municipality.
Right.
Right. It'll, for the four-wheeler traffic, we do get a lot of that side by side and stuff. They drive into our town. And a lot of them are like, well, we met, so it's only a benefit if, like, hey, they have that spot. People from Squaw Lake, people from Kelly or whatever, let's meet there. And the first stop they're gonna be is either at the liquor store or the grocery store. You're packing up
Or the
some
gas stations.
ice, snacks, whatever,
And they're off.
and they're off. So it's going to be an advantage to have something. Yes, and then they have to come back. You're right. Absolutely. So
Might not be a good thing.
it'll be,
I can see it as a benefit because.
yes,
Like I put in the application for the grant, the next closest designated parking lot is 3 Island South or Northland. I might have to relook at the application, but it's
Parking.
quite a ways from here. Unless you're at a private location that's allowing it.
So the planning commission approves it this week and we'll move on from that. That's it.
That's my plan, yes, is to get it on their agenda on Wednesday.
Okay. We're done with old business, new business. I attended the flag disposal ceremony on the 14th, Flag Day. And I thought there was so many flags that they got rid of.
When you say they, Max, who do you mean?
The VFW and AMVETS. That, I tell you, we should have one of these boxes inside City Hall for people to drop them off, because they shouldn't be shredded, they shouldn't be, they should be honorably discharged.
I agree.
And I don't see it being, I didn't call to find out a cost, but I'm sure it can't be.
Decal.
Well, they're stainless steel. These boxes, they're not cardboard boxes, it's a permanent. They have indoor, outdoor versions, and I thought the indoor version sitting in City Hall would be an honor to some of the veterans, so the flag is disposed of properly.
I'm definitely for it, and if there isn't a cost that the city will not or cannot provide, I would be more than happy to donate some too.
Okay, well, we'll find out what the absolute cost is. And we will
And on the agenda for
Put
the
it on the
7th then?
on the agenda for the 7th.
Okay, are you gonna gather that information or do you need me to finish too?
I can do it.
Okay.
Would there be a decal site you guys would prefer on it? Well, we can talk about that.
So the interior is your favored option?
Okay.
Yes.
You know the sizes of the units?
The dimensions were. What was on this?
I thought it was two.
No, it's on their website.
Okay. Well, if you mention the promo code, you get 5% off your order.
Hey, why not? And it benefits VFW, so
Money goes to the.
I'm gonna do my digging on that, but I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it does, yes.
Or Boy Scout.
So if we can, we're all in agreement to that, we can hammer out the final detail on the 7th and we'll just vote on it. Get it coming.
Just provide me with sizes so I know what amount of space I need to dedicate inside the city. I'm assuming it's no bigger than where our fridge is over there.
They don't look that
They
big.
don't look like that.
Half the size of a mailbox, maybe.
Did
You
they
know,
say how many flags you can shove in there?
I don't know,
They're
but
full
there
and
was,
you can get a lot. because
Right, that's kind of what I was trying to
What we
base it
had
on.
collected for last Monday from the last year and a half, because we didn't, I don't know if they did a flag burning in 2020. If they did it, they did. I don't think they took everything that we were keeping over time or collecting, and each had a bag that was just stuffed, plus we put another bag for spots out. And we had 3 or 4 of them in there, so I'm assuming we weren't the only resource that went on the 14th.
no, there was other places that were collected flags too, so. But I think it should be, one of those yearly things, Flag Day.
Yep.
I talked with the VFW guys that were out there that day and they were both all for it, so. be interesting if we could help them out. And on to the splash pad, Jason.
Yeah.
That you sent me a picture.
Yeah, I was just on vacation, yay. And on them really, really, really hot days, I saw just a small splash pad. I mean, it wasn't no bigger from the end of your table max to the wall to Mike. It was like 6 jets maybe. And I've seen them for the size of 1,000 gallons all the way up to however many you want. But I think the biggest that I saw for research was 50,000 gallons. But I'm just trying to spitball ideas on how to attract more families and more kids. I mean, I think it would be a huge benefit to the wayside rest area, just on either side of the restroom.
Very good until the year that they don't get drained right and everything's broke to the freezing winter.
Right, but I do have a lot of faith in Mike over there. And I'm pretty sure, have you ever messed with that in any of the towns that you've been into? No.
They were beginning to pull together and build the splash pad in Twin Valley when I was leaving.
Really?
And in all honesty, I was so happy I didn't have to deal with that.
Well, because you got that bacteria that can grow.
Well, and they're a lot more involved than you think they are.
Really?
A lot more involved.
Because some of the research that I was doing, it was just like, from what they said, it was just like, you just maintain the chemicals and this and that. But yeah, I'm most definitely sure you're gonna have to drain it. Either that or put a heat pad on it. Just don't use it.
And the one that they're building over there is roughly the size of the interior that we're in here, I think. And I know for sure they're well up over $75,000. That's just what I know they've been given in grants recently. And they also are not even close to done building it yet. Like I said, it was being started before I left. And they're a town that's roughly our same population and same dynamic size. Just to give you a little. The main thing that my issues with a splash pad of any kind, anywhere in town, my main issues are that, we end up footing the bill, the city does, or the taxpayers do. But depending on the size, if it's a real small one, you're probably not going to have much draw. But if it's anything, fair size, you're going to draw from a large area. Well, then they show up, they go, they play, they have fun. How much did it cost us to run that thing for a day, 2 days, 3 days? So that's kind of some of the logistical stuff that I look at with it. But, the running and the maintenance of it, once it's up and going, and then, whether or not you put the recycled water system through it or how you run that, it's just the cost of operation. It's not terribly difficult, it's not much more difficult than me making water and putting it in the water tower.
Right.
So,
In that photo, Max, what you didn't see is that wall actually had. So if it wasn't being used, it would shut off.
yeah, I would absolutely recommend that versus it just sitting in the run.
But, so I just have a question. So I had a outside swimming pool and tried to keep all the chemicals, and kids had grass and there was bugs and leaves and, I guess, is this something different than an outside pool?
Yeah, it's just a concrete pad that's got water that shoots up out of it, or fake palm trees that have water coming down.
Oh, so it's like a great big sprinkler in a pit.
Something like
Except for
that.
no pit, it's just.
Oh, a flat. So
It's flat and it's got drains around it.
Oh, so it's the
Yep.
garage floor. I get it.
Yep.
Okay. I was like trying to think of a splash pad. I'm like, is it styrofoam?
Me too, I'm like, oh no.
Those kids are,
That one was.
it was so messy.
Yeah.
This is just concrete.
Like a big garden.
You just recycle the water.
Yeah, no, I'm-
Okay.
I'm putting a lot of faith in the pond remodeling to make a lot of money for the city. I'm just trying to bring people in to hit our restaurants.
So when I was gone, Paige took your suggestion and Max and she went and did a bunch of research. I didn't electronically make this for you guys,
Oh,
but
wow.
if you want to look at it, you can. she called Alexandria, she called Delano, she called a couple other cities that are in the process, or they've already built one. And again, like Mike said, they can run, inexpensive, but all the way up to $500,000. Some people rent them, some people don't. Again, like Max said, it's pretty hard to, have it without it costing the city some money. Some places don't want to do it at all. They keep saying, well, I'd rather have a pool, but I've talked to other municipalities that have pools, and those are things that lose cities money too. I mean, the city of Boston, a private person put that in, gave it to the city, and they rent it to their school, and the city still loses money on it. So I didn't want to, she put a lot of effort into this on Thursday, Friday afternoon, so I figured I'd just let you guys look at it. My only, he said I wanted to chime in on this, and I'm not completely against this because there's an age group that this definitely is focused on. But I'm part of a group from Blandon that has been grant funding and getting private donations that just put in a beach in a water option that doesn't cost us any money. And I'm a little confused why we would want to do this when we're working on the beach when it's so close to town.
See, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I really wanted to put that over by the campground or even the beach area, but then that's drawing people away from it. That was like the hand in hand I was thinking of.
Sure. I can absolutely see it in a lot bigger towns that don't have
A lake next
lakes
door.
or a river that's close by within, a couple minutes away, because they're out there. There's a lot of places that are completely isolated and they don't have the water options we do or the lake options we do. But Benjamin is up the road too, and that's been what this, the people growing up in this town have gone to for decades, but now we've got something closer. I don't know, that's right off of our own campground, so I don't know, is this something that the younger kids are gonna wanna do more than go to the beach? I don't know. My kid's 13 now, so I guess I can't think of it that way.
Them kids were, I'd say about 13, 14 years old that were just running through there, and the parents were sitting underneath, they don't have it here, but it was like an outdoor restaurant. They had
Okay.
The chairs and the umbrellas, and they were sitting there. And the kids were playing in the water.
So it's kind of like a water playground, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just trying to
I
think
can
of
see it
bringing tourism
being beneficial, just,
at the cost.
well, I also got a request for a skate park, 2 weeks ago.
That
So-
was the other thing that I saw, was either splash pad, pool, skate park. They were the only three things that I saw. Going all the way to Michigan.
That I can totally tell too. I mean, we gotta think about it. We do have,
Minnesota actually just approved a bunch of grant money for skate parks for the extreme sports to help foster more interest in it. But a lot of those grants are available only if you get them in by like July.
Well,
So
I know Tony Hawk has his
So I
own
think-
grant,
I
and so
think
does
we're
Home
pushing
Depot
it.
when it comes to skate parks, because that's how Bemidji's got built.
Mhm.
where's Bemidji's?
It's over by the
Curling.
curling club.
Curling club.
Okay.
I know, I talked to Daryl a few years back, and I don't know if he'd still be willing to, but he said he would donate all product to her because he was sick and tired of driving to Bemidji for his kids.
There's been some recent controversy about that one down in Bemidji too, where people didn't want kids on their scooters
Mm.
or on their rollerblades and that thing. And they, or their little smaller bikes, not even their scooters. And pushback as to what you can use on it. And I recall last year that the council ended up, or maybe it was Parks and Rec, were considering keeping those people away.
There's some more signs up.
Are there?
Yeah, I go by there for work quite a bit.
I don't want to be that town.
No, I have to be inclusive.
Well, if I'm not good at a skateboard and I'm good on a scooter and I'm 6 and this is my first, wheeled option, then why can't I use it, you know? I don't know. Do you guys want to like share this, or do you want me to ask Paige to electronically put it together for you? I just didn't want to push it unless I knew after the meeting tonight you guys are still wanting to pursue anything. Or do you just want to look at the numbers put together?
We'll see it. I mean, she went through the trouble of doing it. I'd say we take a look at it.
Okay,
Honestly, take a look.
I'll ask her to.
And I don't know what grants are out there for that kind of stuff, but there's probably something that might be spent. There's, I don't know, I don't know where exactly we could put it.
Yeah, I was just.
It
thinking
depends on
something
size.
small, Yeah.
I'll ask Paige to assemble this and I'll just have her email it to you guys. If you want it to
Yes,
continue on this work session agenda, I can keep it on there. If you guys don't, I'll take it off.
I'd say keep it on for another
One more work session.
It can't hurt.
Will do.
The golf board meeting,
So I apologize, Jason, that it's at 4:30. If I can change it an hour earlier, does that assist you, or do you start at 4 and that's too?
I started
too
about
late?
4:10. somewhere in there.
So 3 is probably still too late.
I mean,
Or,
it is what it is. I mean, I'll just miss this one, or I'll just pop in for a half hour, whatever.
this one's gonna be, I would think there's gonna be quite a few people there.
yeah, you know, there's a lot of discussion out in town after the June council meeting about, you know, changing the course and what's gonna happen, and there's a lot of rumor mills going around.
Yes, there are.
And, you know, I've met with a couple of members, supplied them with some data, and I think there's some people that think this board is completely against the golf course and just wants to shut it down. I've tried to, you know, be the sense of reason that, yes, this board has been going through a growing pains of what to do, you know? They don't want to see it close, but they need to see a cash flow, and, you know, most people only hear what they want to hear, but this, I knew going into June that the golf board needed to meet. I was waiting for a couple members to get better to actually attend the meeting. And because they were ill or absent. But the ladies' league had asked if they could have an audience of the council out at the clubhouse. And I told them that that wasn't allowable because that's not where the council meet. I invited them to the work session. They want a captive audience, so they asked if they could attend the golf board meeting, and I said absolutely. So I don't know what questions they have, if it's just golf related or just the conversations I've been having right now. But there will be an audience there, for sure. I just want to note that, Max, because I know you'll be there, that it's important for the board and yourself to know that if at any point that meeting starts becoming a personnel conversation, that your staff has the right to close that meeting and stop it. Because even though it's not a personnel committee meeting or a public meeting, it is still a public meeting, even though it's a committee meeting.
Mhm.
So I just want you to keep that in mind.
Which would bring me to our next, the personnel committee meeting.
Anybody go to this meeting?
Yes, but if I have a full board there, then I have to announce it.
Hmm.
And that was the controversy I had with the ladies' league.
You want to show up at 4? I'll be gone by then. You're gonna miss the first hour of it.
It's difficult. I mean,
Two of us can be there.
two of you
Three of
guys
us
can be
can.
there. I can't
Yeah,
have a quorum
That's
there.
right, yeah, that's right.
It will.
Yep.
I'm not saying
I
you
forgot
can't
about
come, but it could be construed as an open meeting violation if three of you.
I
should-
forgot about the 3 thing.
Yep,
So I'm sorry.
so the first thing is Jason and I will try to change it to 3, because I've already told a couple of people 4:30, and I apologize because I know you were on vacation.
Yep, no,
But if I'll push it to 3, I'm sure a few people can go. As you know, Larry and Shazer's no longer, they moved. So right now it would only be Max, Jason, myself, Jim, Pam, and Kevin that would be present at the moment.
That's the board, yes.
Correct.
The rest of the,
Absolutely. Whoever else, I'm just talking the board.
oh,
Yes, that's what I meant. I will do my best to change it as 3, and then I will alert everyone.
Mike, you'll be present?
At the golf board meeting?
Yes.
Sure.
There you go, there's your personal invitation.
I've already found out people aren't real happy with me anyways over this, so might as well show up.
you get used to it.
Somebody's gotta be the real voice of reason.
You bring in my hired gun.
That's what I said in the
I just want to make sure that I make it very clear and as published as I can, since this flyer's already been up in the golf course.
I know, that's why I said, if you can't, I totally understand.
I'll try first, and if for some reason it doesn't, I'll make sure everybody knows regardless one way or the other.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, there's a couple of, Dawn Jordan's been on our board before. She really wanted to be there. I think she'll be there for sure. I just thought that earlier was a conflict for her too. I'll have to look back in my notes.
To your question, Max, I really don't care when it is, I just can't do it next week.
Personnel committee meeting?
Correct. I'm always going to Florida. Training for Anderson's. And she gets to go partying in Fort Lauderdale.
Whoop, whoop.
Not a lot of gas.
No, not at $1,300 an airline ticket. Yeah, coming back on 4th of July. Yeah, I jumped at like $400.
So, personnel meeting, do you have topics you need to go on the agenda that you can share, Max? I'm assuming,
Yes, they're gonna be speaking about you.
Position,
Your
not
Position.
you, your position. I
I
got you.
I really want to be there. Okay. Anything else? Since I'll be putting the agenda together. I mean.
Also, you know, I think the personnel committee seriously needs to take a look at some of the, you know, there's been enough complaints. And I think we need some to examine the golf course
Staff,
staff.
in terms of job descriptions? Or,
Or are you talking complaints of the staffers?
Complaints of the staff.
Okay.
So we need Jim or Pam there?
Well, I wouldn't say you need them there.
And you two have any agendas for your departments?
Are we still, is this a carryover from the meeting that was supposed to be from weeks ago? So is it all the job descriptions then that we need to go over still, or what?
Well, we don't want to, that personnel meeting would be 5 hours long. If we did every job description. You have to pick some.
I don't know, last I knew that we were gonna go over them all at some point in time, so that's why I'm asking if that's what we're doing or what we're doing.
yeah, that's what I'm asking.
And yeah, that's the one we're talking about.
Do you want to pick a few then?
We're gonna have to segment it out.
Right.
And take yours and Mike's.
Mine?
Huh?
Mine?
Your department or Mike's position?
His department and also the difference between maintenance 1 and 2.
Okay.
No,
Well, we kind of,
I think
We
already
already
do that.
changed that.
Yeah.
we're kind of in there with that,
We're in that
yeah.
process.
We're still waiting for Chris's training to be done.
Okay,
But we have it mostly, I think.
We have it drafted.
That's one of the ones that we addressed at the last meeting, that one. And then the full-time position that I needed. And yeah, that's,
But the rest of yours, other than the full-time lead bartender,
because I thought it was kind of,
assistant and storage room.
We-
ready to go.
I thought that the recommendation of the personnel committee was to not hire more people out of the golf course.
Correct.
Yep. That's what we decided
Right.
last time. That was our
No,
recommendation. anyways.
our recommendation was not to increase the
their
wage
wages.
Well,
at the golf course.
well, no, because the way that Jim made it sound like it was he had enough. He only needed the one person, I believe,
For the grounds.
for the grounds,
Right,
and then it was 2 for the clubhouse. But after that, he said he didn't need any more people.
right, but we just, the recommendation of the personnel committee, I think, was the wage that was on
Yep,
on the agenda.
the
For us to
conversation at the
consider.
last council meeting of that was the city council board to discuss increasing the wages of the staff at the golf course.
It
And
was,
that was declined
And remember,
to change anything.
Council.
Yeah.
Council
The council
declined.
declined that.
And of the, if I could make a recommendation for the personnel committee, to have a committee chair, I would recommend Jason be put in that position.
circle back, I think that we did recommend that the golf course not hire any more grounds people. I'm almost positive of it.
I think the personnel committee also recommended we don't increase their wages too.
Correct.
And the council took that advice.
you brought that up.
Right. Also, for the email personnel committee, no, golf board committee, was it? For the golf carts? How did that turn out?
Refresh my memory, I'm not sure I'm touching you.
They were talking about getting 15 golf carts.
To use or to purchase?
Something that said that everyone was on break and he wanted to do it by email. Oh, wait a minute, that was something totally different.
That was totally
Yep.
different. That's a full-time position that we filled.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I do understand a little bit of what you might be alluding to, Jason, but I think that was in regards to fundraising.
Oh, okay.
The ladies'
So-
league had said something.
Circle
Thank
back
you.
and back again.
Again, thank you.
Christina's job description, my job description, make sure my maintenance 1 and 2s are ready to go,
Yep,
and anybody else's,
The golf course you wanted.
the golf course stuff.
and the golf course
To,
job descriptions.
see if there's a reason why, because
Yeah, you were talking complaints.
we're hearing plenty.
So just to discuss the golf course personnel in general, not job description, but personnel.
Well, your job description, if you want to talk about Jim and Pam's job descriptions, that might solve a lot of the complaints.
Okay,
We'll throw those 2 on there as well.
yeah, that'll probably be good.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
because I think there's a difference of opinion on who's doing what. I'm serious. There is a difference of not my job, your job.
And I think a lot has to do with the title.
And we'll just, and then I'm gonna leave that up to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so let's circle back on a date then, please.
Yes.
Before we circle back on the date, does it have to be a closed meeting since we're dealing about complaints?
At
At least that portion should be.
least that portion
Okay.
can be, and your staff that are filling those positions have the right to be here.
Okay. All right, just wanted to
So
make
they
sure.
have to be notified if we're talking about them.
Okay, wanted to make sure on that.
So,
So go over the job descriptions first. And deal with what we'll take. Since we don't have anything formal complaints, we have what you've been told, what I've been told,
Okay.
what Mike's been told. That doesn't necessarily warrant
A close meeting.
a closed meeting.
Okay.
I would say something, if there was a formal complaint, then sure.
Okay.
But at this point, no.
I would assume then that you'll pass what you've heard along to us, you know. What's being said, these complaints.
Or are you going to be in attendance to that meeting?
Well, he's on the board, man.
No,
Oh, it's
no.
Mike.
It's Jace, Mike, me,
Yeah,
Shonda, and
yeah.
you.
That's right.
Oh,
Just
wait,
since you're not gonna be
Yeah.
taking
Yeah,
on
he
the
is on the
complaint,
board.
since you're not taking,
Yeah, the golf
The
board.
golf board, not the personnel
not the
committee.
personnel committee.
I can bring those complaints.
It's okay, we'll
to the
get there.
Board meeting, but they don't need to be brought up at a personnel.
I know what. Yeah. Sounds good.
But. Okay,
To follow.
Okay.
so
Off the golf
maybe,
board, we're on the personnel.
Yes,
but maybe you get a copy of those and maybe do some highlighting for us to take special attention to those line items in that golf.
Okay,
I think Shonda's suggestion is a good idea.
This is obviously gonna happen after the golf board meeting.
Yeah, well, the golf board meeting is scheduled on the 29th, so yes. I think it should be after.
Ugh.
That would make
That's-
more sense.
It's a Tuesday.
Thank you.
That said, is the next day, the 30th.
I'm okay with that.
Too soon. Too soon.
let's see if everybody can peel Band-Aids off and come in the next day.
Or do we immediately do it the same night?
What,
Again, we're gonna have a conflict. Jason needs to be there,
Yeah.
so we need to do it early enough today so he can make the
on a Tuesday?
shift. Mm,
You're on.
I can't do it on the 29th because we already put the golf board meeting at that day.
Yeah,
So then we're gonna
take the 30th.
push it off to July 1, you guys. That's gonna be hard.
You're on the 30th.
What is it?
You'll have a whole
Or
bunch
Shonda.
of,
Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday.
You guys are killing me.
Yeah.
The only day off.
Yeah.
Why not?
Pumping your, make your pumping.
Yeah.
You'll get to use it at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Sooner or later, we'll get to use
You'll
all
take
that
all of
stuff.
December off when the project's done.
I told Shonda I'm taking August off.
And when the
No,
kitchen's
I-
closed, go
Kitchen's
ahead,
closed down, Mama.
take it.
Okay,
Don't
so
laugh at me.
is 3 o'clock too late? Would you prefer it to be 2?
I gotta be there at 4:10, 4:15. So if we think we can deal with this in an hour,
No way, no way.
so,
I think it needs to be at noon.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and I think the city should buy us lunch.
I agree.
Great, now I gotta cook your lunch?
Okay, so
There you go.
June 30th, Wednesday, noon, my office, closed doors. Do we need it to be? Yeah, we can put them in.
It sounds to me like it needs to be a closed meeting.
All right, and then, so all of the ones that need to be, reviewed, would like to take a look at them before that.
Mhm.
Okay, I will send them all out. So I have my position, the full public works department from supervisor down.
Yeah.
The golf course jobs descriptions. Management down.
Yep.
Have they changed since the last time you sent them up?
No, sir,
And I already have them.
I don't.
they don't.
Oh, fair
That's
enough.
fine. I'll just send up them all one thing.
Okay.
I will, I'll do my best to work with Jace to make sure he can be there.
It's on what, a Wednesday?
Yeah,
I don't know which week it is. Short week or long week.
anything else, Max? that you need to bring up at this point then on that?
Not with that, no. The only other thing was that I was wondering if Jason was gonna be here. I didn't want him blindsided and stuff.
On this particular?
Well, on something else.
If I may, if there's something that you need to talk to him about, may I suggest you just reach out to him?
Yes. I'll track him down. Throw him in front of us.
Hey, I got that.
All right, I'm done. You guys done? We should, are we gonna run the HRA right into this, or do we want to adjourn and open?
So let's just run into it.
All right,
We'll be able to probably morph into something at this afterwards, but the way I understand it, I think we can continue.
since it's a work session kind of thing.
Yeah. So I sent everybody this League of Minnesota Cities guidance on community development, redevelopment document. And you can look that over, that at least goes over a lot of the statute or the chapter, Minnesota chapter 469, that allows cities to have EDAs and HRAs. What I did last week was I emailed my region of clerks that takes care of the northwest corner of the state and asked if there was any other sister cities that had a current HRA or EDA that was working really well that would be willing to mentor us. And the City of Detroit Lakes director, as I've already spoken to today, is going to mentor us. We talked in detail about this chapter 14, and we just went through some basics so that I had at least something I can share with you guys. Kurt Keenan is the executor of the Detroit Lakes HRA. He has been for 10 years. Really great guy, full of knowledge. He is willing to attend our next work session and to assist our city to get our HRA going. The couple of things that he wanted to share today is what this document is basically going to tell us is, how to establish an HRA and an EDA and what they can and cannot do. But what he recommends is if you already have an established HRA and you're just looking to resurrect it, you've already gone through one step. So, I don't know, maybe about a year and a half ago, I went to deed for just making sure our HRA was still viable. And they ensured us that they have the resolution stating that the city enacted an EDA and an HRA, separate but very similar. And they still have that document. It's aged. It's probably the late 90s that it was sent in. What he suggests, since it hasn't been running since 2006, is that the city could just update that resolution and send it to deeds so that they had it on the record that it was. What that establishing and that designation does with the state is that it gives the municipality the ability to levy to receive funding. That's the other section of this chapter. What resources does our HRA or EDA have? We're only talking about the HRA. The document's going to tell you that by chapter 469, the city has the right to levy 0.01875% of our city's market value into a special taxing district that will put money into our HRA. If the city chooses to do so, which from the notes that I read, I don't think it did that in the past. I think it established most of its funding from deed based on like small cities development grants, things like that, where some of the money went to the HRA and some of it went to the relevant fund in the early 2000s. But you can take that funding as long as you know the city establishes it's going to take that levy only for that particular reason. Okay. Remember I told you at the last work session we had little over $5,000 in that fund left over from 06. So that's where those funds would go if the city chose to do that.
How do you guys feel about that?
Start the levy back up?
Well, it's a pretty small percentage, but yeah, like he says Detroit Lakes is like got a $8 million budget or $8 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he said B, I'm not sure. But they get, this percentage and they get like maybe 200 grand out of that. It doesn't sound like a lot of money for them because they're a larger population. For us, that's a lot of money. So it's all relative. But one of the things he definitely said is, once you get that levy established and you start getting some funding, he said the state indeed is really going to look towards making up, what you're lost if you're not difference to help people or to, build more homes or acquire.
Right, so when we're gonna have a big gap
We may have a big gap, it depends.
and get more funding kind of thing.
Right, but you need to have some money before they'll give you
Give
some
you
more.
money, yeah.
That's what he said. The next step he said is once you establish that fund balance, the city wants to look at maybe its top 2 or its top 3 priorities of what it would like to do with this funding so that it knows when we're asking for it from the taxpayers that that's what your focus is on. It's basically your strategic plan. You may not necessarily get to do all 3 or 2 of your priorities, but you need to establish those, document them so that, your levy has, meaning, reference to it. At that point, then when you have that, gap to be met, then you can start looking for other programs like with Minnesota Housing or other HUD grants that can make up that net difference, whether you're going to build new housing or you're going to focus on, what did he say? Helping people with, new furnaces or, new roof or something that's going to make it the house more,
Non-blight issue.
well, not even blight, Jason. He was referring to things like, so it's a house you can live in. You're not going to spend an arm and a leg heating or cooling. Energy efficient.
Energy efficient.
Thank you. I knew I'd get it at some point. So that was another option too. One of the scenarios I threw at him was, okay, let's just assume for the sake of argument that we want to look at future, maybe buying some property to annex into the city in the future so that more housing can be built. Is that something to look towards using this funding for? And he said, yes. He said, if the initial intention, one of your priorities is to create more housing, then you're obviously going to need the funding to do so. I said, does that property need to have services up to it? And he said, no, not necessarily. It could have wells and septic on it. There's no parameter saying it doesn't have to. You just need to remember that where you're levying the money from is from the municipality's tax base, not outside the townships. Kind of like what Kurt was talking about earlier. So that was just one scenario I gave him, just my own brain thinking. So what I guess I'd like to know from the council from those few pieces of feedback is we're getting into a portion where we're going to start looking at budgeting, for 22. If we're going to want to establish that levy, that would be a conversation we're going to want to probably have. And what does that look like? Because it may take 2 to 3 years before we establish a decent enough fund balance to even do any of your priorities.
I know this is a huge stretch, but do you happen to have the total market value of Blackduck on?
I don't.
I didn't think you would. I just wanted to ask, just in
No,
case.
I would have to look at my budget. I want to say that it was,
I can't.
it's
remember.
either 3 or 5, and I wanted to say it was 3. So I mean, it's less than
I
a
think,
percent of that. So you might get $3,000 a year,
in my opinion, I think we'd be better off trying to help people with what they currently have.
improving the stock that we have in town.
Yes,
I agree.
because I think the development corps can do a pretty good job of
Acquiring property.
acquiring property and putting up new homes. They would have a little easier time. And for us, if we come across, say, $10,000 worth of furnaces that need to get replaced, we can,
Yeah,
So we would need like an application based.
yeah, and we kind of have some housing guidelines right now that are focused primarily on a revolving loan fund that we could probably, cannibalize and use for some, standard procedure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think like
I'm trying to think what the guidelines would be. Would it be like income based? Would it be government assistant based?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Kurt even said, if you want to work on this energy assistance, maybe, you get some money from HUD and HUD subsidizes, the roof being redone and the city subsidizes the furnace or the HVAC. So that person's getting a better house in its totality and not just a portion of it.
Well, and you improving the market value of the house that way.
yes.
But he strongly suggests that the council consider trying the levy concept first, see if, if that can get passed so that it can start to grow.
I didn't read that part of it, but were there limitations as to what
What you can do with it.
what we can't do?
I asked Kurt the same question too, and he said there isn't a whole lot of restrictions on it. I do recall him stating that EDAs, economic development authorities, and HRAs, housing redevelopment authorities, work very, very similar. It's just your two different types of development for commercial versus residential. So that's why most places have two, but they're pretty much run the same way. But I did read a section in there about restrictions, and if you're looking at improving your housing stock, nothing really holds you back. He said the only thing that might hold you back is, let's just assume HUD is our financier, to finance that net need, whatever. There might be some restrictions from HUD, like does the house have paint in it or something to that extent? Does it need mold mitigation?
Would it still have a stipulation where you have to live there within the next 5 years, or you have to pay it back? Or?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point and it's part of the city's policy too.
Okay.
I know with the last round of housing rehab that was done in 2009, and most of those houses have met their 10-year mark. Those are all pretty much all sunsetted at this point. There was a HUD finance part of that. I don't think the HRA was part of it. I think it was all from the state and the feds. So that was completely, totally controlled by their restrictions. Where an HRA, you have a little bit more of a ability to work around it because it's your rules versus the state and the federal rules.
I see where it says membership up to 7. Is there a minimum we need?
The board can act as the HRA. It does not need to
that's-
designate a specific commission to do so unless it wishes to. So considering it hasn't been active since 2006, even Kurt suggests the board, the existing board here, act as the HRA until it really gets moving and would like to get some additional outside input.
Okay.
Because the city's going to want to know what's going on and what better way to do it to make it forward. He said there's many cities that will just adjourn their meeting and then open their HRA meeting. Happens all the time.
So the first step would be to authorize, well, we can't do it here, but to authorize and say we want to move forward with the levy then?
Yeah. Kurt would be willing to show up at the next work session through Zoom too. So if you guys come up with a bunch of questions between now and like our July meeting, maybe that's something we can have in that, and that might come up with some other things that we want to, think about your priorities, what you really want to do, and try to narrow them down at that point. That would be my suggestion. I'm assuming, of course, you want to do the levy, so moving on to step 3. I shouldn't put words in your guys' mouth, but I mean, it makes sense to me. I had no idea you could do the levy until I read it and he did.
Right, so it's not a council action, it's an HRA action.
Well, it is a council action to agree to the levy.
So it's the council approving its own.
Yes,
Funding.
HRA.
yes. But it's allowable by chapter 416.
I'm trying to find the letter for it.
Little government math to go with the government rules. Yeah, I know, some of the,
Yeah, would you
like-
guys like Kurt's contact information? I did print it off.
I did read in that too, where it said that they would like to start off with the mayor and the council can sit on the board as the acting board. And it also said something about the commissions. Would that be like the county commissioners?
No, that would be the commissioners that would sit as the HRA.
Okay.
so you're no longer
They're one and the
counselor, you're
same.
commissioner.
Commissioners. So
Yeah.
that means we would have to have the $75.
Only if that's an option.
Okay, thank you.
Are you asking for a raise, Jason?
No, just making sure that we're not gonna.
Because then the
pay ourselves.
HRA fund would pay you guys,
Yeah,
not the city
exactly.
council, not the city general
You
fund.
can't get double paid.
Yeah.
I read that. I already read that in there.
Yeah.
So us sitting on the council, we would get our council paid and the HRA would not pay us.
No, you have to stop and then go on that and then get paid from that.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to do. Since we're already here.
Right.
Well, that would be my.
I have a question. I know it's not really pertaining to me, but so the only way to fund, I mean, is that the only way? Is it levy? Or if you have an active HRA, are you going to qualify for
We can-
some federal grants and
Yes.
stuff? So to help,
Yes. But what Kurt made me understand is you really can't walk in without something on the table. And that doesn't seem too far-fetched to me because all the grants and stuff that we've applied for, you can't go with no contribution.
right, but I'm just saying that
It does give you the ability to do so. Some cities utilize the money that they're levying for to pay financial specialists that are very good at getting deed or HUD grants to be that grant specialist, if you will, to actually write.
How long would that be? I mean, how many years?
The numbers together.
Yeah.
So the only, sorry. So the only way that we could actually get funding would either be by grants or the levy. We can't just say, hey, we're gonna put $40,000 from our general fund every
No,
year
you
in the
can't do
budget.
that.
Okay.
No, you can't.
All right, so them are the only two options. Okay.
Would you guys like Kurt's contact information? Or you want me to work through it?
No, I'll take it.
You ready? His last name is spelled Keena.
Yeah.
His phone number is 218-847-7859. And his email,
Probably should have done that live, but that's all right.
that's his office line. That's his
Okay.
line. We actually have an HRA office, so, yeah.
Wow.
It's Detroit Lakes, you
Yeah.
know? And then Kurt's email address is KURTDEE D as in dog, L, HRA at arvig.net, ARVIG.net. So KURT, D as in dog, L, HRA at arvig.net.
Gotcha.
Gloria French is the administrator in Detroit Lakes, and she's been a great partner. And when she saw my email last Friday, she's like, yeah, you can call her. So we had a great talk. He took my phone call right away today. He's more than willing to help us get going.
It's strange for the size of the town and how early they shut down. Like, that's where I was just after my wedding, my nephew's wedding, and they were down by midnight. And I'm just like, wow.
Most of these towns up north shut down.
Mhm.
They roll the sidewalks up at 5 and that's it.
Right.
So I am in favor of running with the levy. Yeah, that's the first step where we gotta get money. Budget.
Yes.
And you said, Christina, you'll let us know what the percentage is that we.
Yeah, let
have.
me look at the particulars that's in the.
.0185.
No, that's what I'm saying, like,
It's based off the value.
right, no, okay, let me rephrase the question. Like when we were putting for the grant for the bulldozer or the scraper, we had to have, was it 40%?
Percentage of it
Yeah.
down.
Yes. And then that way we can calculate how many years we have to save for it before we can actually start applying for the grants.
Yeah, what is a good fund balance to have beforehand is a very good question.
Yeah, and other ways of filling that up.
Mhm. It's a good start considering nothing's been done in 15 years.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen overnight.
It's a good initiative to have.
All right.
I got a couple things.
Oh, that's
It's not on the.
not on the agenda.
Oh, we can throw it out if you want.
I didn't make the word other.
One thing is relatively quick. We talked at
That's on the
the
podium.
council meeting, well, this is where all my stuff is. We talked at the council meeting about the current lack of material in the playgrounds. We brought that up, and a couple other people also had it. I had been working on it. I do have the number for the material for the one at the Wayside and out at Pine Tree Park would be $1,400. 120 cubic yards of engineered wood chips.
The rubber chips.
Essentially, they're an engineered wood fiber. So what exactly that is, it's made up of a lot of different stuff. It's all ADA compliant and all that. The material itself, I knew wasn't really gonna be our issue at $1,400 for an entire semi-load. Where we're gonna run into the issue is the containment around the material. I have here a quote from the same people, which I found to be relatively about the lowest price there is. To get the recycled plastic border timbers, they call them. I'm sure you guys have seen them at the playgrounds. They're 12-inch tall plastic, 4 feet long. They hook together. You can make any size you want. Both of our playgrounds measure out to be about 40 by 40. So to get enough of them, I'm going to be looking at $3,200 for that. And then if we want to put a ramp at each one, the ramps are about $700. So I've got the money in my budget to cover the material to put down at the playground. However, my budget, neither of my parks budgets have the money to to the borders at this time. So my question to you is, do any of you have any thoughts, ideas, connections on anything? Because I can go out there and do, you know, a 2x12 with some 1x1s down into the ground, and that's gonna last me a little while, but it's not gonna be a permanent fix.
You're gonna have to take the fence up.
I want to take the fence down anyways.
Yes,
The fence is
it's not
needed.
very good anyway.
No,
It's not.
the fence needs to be redone. If we were to keep it up, and really to me, the fence is an eyesore on what is a pretty nice looking set of playground equipment.
It is.
So that's kind of where I sit with that, with what does the council recommend? What are your recommendations as far as what I do?
You guys get the most feedback on those playgrounds.
Well, we go down there about every day.
And like with that playground down there with the fence around it, removing the fence would sure make it a lot more
Accessible.
user friendly and accessible, yeah. big time.
Visible.
Yep. And again, we have to have some sort of containment. The material depth would be between 6 to 8 inches roughly. What they call for generally is an inch of material for every potential foot that a child could fall off the equipment. Around that 6 to 8 inches, like I said, there are 12-inch plastic blocks, so you would have your material and then you'd have, of course, some lip to help retain it all.
Does that qualify to, can we use money from,
Probably like $4,000.
what, can we use it from the liquor rent fund? Playground equipment.
One of my questions.
I would say yes. It was just a few years ago when the trestle burnt and the city earmarked and sent $11,000 to that, the rebuilding of the trestle. That's in a fund, Northwest Minnesota Foundation is controlling to hopefully rebuild that trestle. And that was a community thing. So I would say, based on your question, what it's used for, that, yeah, it would be useful.
I mean, that would get us ADA compliant and everything else right away.
Correct.
That would make it nice,
Would make it nice.
you know. If you got time to do it.
I gotta make time to do it.
Well, I know you're busy.
Yeah, we gotta get it, especially, I mean, I know you've been down there. I don't know if the other three of you have been down, but I mean, we're about out of material on those. The wood chips are just about gone and down into the mud, and it gets muddy when it rains.
Well, if we can do it that way, then we'll do it that. Are we going to pass that at the next meeting?
Yes.
We'll do it at the next meeting, Mike.
Good. So,
We'll make sure that the,
And that's
okay,
just
use,
for the wayside rest is what your intention is.
no, it'd be for the
No,
wayside
for both.
rest and for the Pine Tree Park as well.
You have,
Now that the beach is out there, we actually do have a lot of our residents and stuff out there playing on the playground too, which is good to see actually.
you have to order them plastic borders?
Yes. I
How
have to
long
order.
does that take to get in?
I don't know how much they have on hand. I would assume that they would have this amount on hand, so it shouldn't take too terribly long. I also, I mean, I have to order the fiber. It's coming out of West Fargo, actually.
I think it
It's not
has to
too
be
terrible.
so it's fire retardant, everything else, you know,
ADA
you
Mhm.
know.
So that, I mean, depending on once it gets here, we actually do have a lot of our equipment out between the ponds and the beach right now, doing work on both of those here and there when we get some time. So once I get it ordered and I get it coming, it's not gonna take me long to get everything up to snuff and looking good.
yeah, I was just out at the beach, actually.
You seen some of the improvements we're trying to do? out
I
there?
the only thing that would have made it better, Mike, was my sandwich was awful.
Well,
Yeah,
I can't help you there.
You know, that's just what I got that day.
Can't help you there.
You're saying we need grills out there?
Mike,
Well-
if you could get me the correct number of what that's gonna cost so that I can
I will get this.
add it to their agenda for the correct approval? That'd be great.
So should I hold off on ordering then until this has been approved?
That's why, I was wondering how long it takes to get the border, because the border is, you need the border before you need the wood chips,
Pretty much.
you know?
Kinda gotta do it all at the same.
Well, I know, but
Really,
it takes you
you know?
3 weeks to get the
No,
border,
it's-
and a week to get a semi-load of wood chips, I mean,
No, it's on the same lines as that purchase.
you
You're
can't
gonna,
do
if
it.
you're gonna make a donation, it has to be in the form of a motion. You can't do that at a work session. And you can't approve that purchase agreement
You
at a work
can't,
session either.
can't do nothing.
Okay.
So we, roughly from your numbers, I'm calculating about $6,000. We have that in that fund, Christina?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm at $6,479 with a freight charge of $425 for the border and the ramps. Freight is already built into the fiber price. So that is actually another way that if we wanted to save some money, we'd probably grab my trailer from home and hook it to the pickup and run to Fargo and pick that stuff up. That would probably only save, by the time I put my hours in and everything, $125, $200.
When you got time to do that?
I don't really know.
Okay, so, all right, here we go.
Is it your intention then, Max, to make a motion to approve for the funding out of the liquor rent fund for just containment? For the border containment or for the entire?
It was my intention to do the whole thing.
Then Mike has to wait regardless.
Yep,
Is it $dollar amount?
and our next meeting is on
July 6th.
6th.
Tuesday.
Apparently, it's not, it'll be dry till then.
That's okay, I can start getting
It
the,
just rained.
get the fence down, I can get the old material out, I can get things, prepped and moving forward. I'll have to get some
I
some
also-
fabric of some kind, to lay down, because we'll spray everything under it, make sure it's good and dead, put some fabric down. Hope not to have to do anything with it for 15, 20 years.
Hey, that'd be great.
Did you had a couple of things, Mike?
Yeah, we had talked at the last meeting and you guys wanted some numbers from me about the possibility of this RV park that I talked about. Well, I don't have any solid numbers for you. I actually need more information from you guys.
When you say numbers, Mike, I apologize, I wasn't there. You talking like how much it's gonna
How much it's gonna cost us to put in,
put in?
was what I took away from it. I'm sure you guys probably wanna know roughly what we can make out of it. So what I need to know from you is how serious you want me to look into this, because in order for me to come up with any real concrete numbers, I need to put some time into this. I need to figure out exactly what kind of footages I have. I need to know my elevations out there, where I'm gonna put my lift station. We gotta figure out what we're gonna do with water, there is a well out at the golf course. But, how many campsites can that sustain if we do go ahead and do this?
And
Do
you
we need
said,
to look at taking water from town and pumping it out there?
and then you said you're gonna make that full hookups, so you're gonna have your own sewer lines connected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So to me, it's a seasonal RV park
Yeah.
out there.
Again, I wasn't here. Are you gonna make them back-ins or drive-throughs?
They would be back in
Only back-ins?
because they would be seasonal. So the need to drive through shouldn't be, once or twice a year, you might be pulling out of there.
Okay.
My vision in my head is that there's probably going to be a lot more park models out there than campers or RVs really. Once they go in, they really don't move until the people sell or update. So with that being said, the other portion of this is recently I've I guess my name has become the villain name at the golf course for shutting it down, which At this point, I'm just wholeheartedly going to accept and embrace and roll forward.
Don't worry, Mike, you're not the only
Well-
one in your position that had the idea in the past.
This is my outlook on it. I was hired to do a job, and I was hired to do it the right way, in my opinion, which is benefit this community and the taxpayers. So I looked at some numbers of things, and this is kind of, I just want to say it quickly before I get into the rest of this golf course stuff. 43,933, 70,658. Those two numbers are the last 2 years and what the golf course lost. 44,000 last year, 70,000 the year before. If you take off their payments, then last year they still lost 21,000. The year before, they still lost. That's after you get rid of all the special government math to make it look like they didn't lose as much. What I'm suggesting, if done the way that I think it can be done eventually, $800,000 a year. That's what I see in potential income. $800,000 that can be spent on our streets, our infrastructure, our materials, our equipment.
With that dollar amount, Mike, and that's just from the RV park itself.
It's just from the RV park. That's just from the RV park. Now, that $800,000, let me break that down to you. That is with me intending, and there could be more. That's with me putting in roughly, and I'd have to measure it out, roughly 200 seasonal RV sites.
Now, these would be fully concrete,
No,
just where they're
I'm
parking.
not putting any concrete in.
And you could foresee 200 people coming here?
So you want these people to park their RVs on
Yep.
rock?
No, I would put gravel in, just not concrete. I don't see any need for concrete. If you go to any of the RV parks now,
They're not.
the ones I've been to anyways, I've never had a
I
concrete
don't
pad
think
park.
Tomahawk is concrete.
Big Falls has,
Some of the seasonals that I drove by were concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most of the time you park your trailer over that and you have your little mini decks and stuff out there. People don't.
I don't foresee the need for concrete. I really don't.
Yeah, concrete.
Underneath of the trailer itself, the only benefit I can possibly see to having that would be your leveling and your stabilizing. Everybody's camper nowadays has jacks. I mean, you're talking about what I'm guessing are a lot of park models going out there. Whoever buys the park model usually brings it, sets it up, levels it, and they take off,
if it's the right material,
you know?
it'll settle itself
But you're
down
gonna
and
pack,
be
you're gonna
even.
get them all packed in there anyway.
Well, that's another portion. Okay, so at 200, I know it sounds like a lot, but it's really not that many. Go and look at
Tomahawk 7 has 75.
Tomahawk has 75, and if you and I both stood like this, I could touch this one and you could touch that one. About 15 feet in between the campers. I absolutely do not want that. I'm looking at camp lots that are roughly 60 by 60. With that said, at 200 of them, I believe we can get $4,000 per site seasonal. That
Easy,
gives me that $800,000 mark.
easy.
Dependent on how we use the land out there, you could possibly put a lot more than 200 in. Now, the draw, the main thing I keep hearing around town is, we can't close the golf course, we can't close the golf course. It's such a benefit to the community. I absolutely 100% disagree with that statement. I think you put 200 campsites in here, even if they have 2 people in them for 6 months of the year, you've now brought 400 people to town for 6 months out of the year. And those people are going to drink at your bar, eat at your bar, go to your grocery store, go to your liquor store, go to your chiropractor, maybe go to your bank, maybe go to your dentist. A lot more people and businesses and taxpayers are going to benefit from this than they do the golf course. I'll go even further out on them. A lot of the pushback I'm hearing is from members To my knowledge, this year there are 43 members, and to my knowledge, not a single one of them lives within the city. And I know I'm gonna get grief for this, but somebody's gotta say it. We're here for the taxpayers of town.
59 members.
Oh, is it
43 was
59?
43 was last year.
My apologies.
I just got the email.
Okay, well, either way, so that was last year's number. If there is some in town, well, then I apologize for being wrong about that. But that's kind of where I sit on it. As far as how much is this gonna take to get off the ground? That's where I need to know how serious the council is about this possibly happening.
So when you say 200 units, you're talking 2 holes, 3 holes?
That
Of
would
the
be
golf
the golf.
course.
Of
used
golf?
up.
How many would be left? 3 or 4?
And that, well, I know we were talking before, I don't know what was discussed on the council meeting, but we were talking possible driving range, a chipping range, putting range, all that stuff would still be on board.
I have a multitude of ideas of ways to make money out there
Volleyball, all that
that
stuff.
mainly revolve around the RV park.
Okay.
With, amenities for the RVers, but also having amenities that we don't have now for our townspeople. Such as possibly the driving range, depending on what we do here, how big we decide to go, there's tons of room for expansion. We've got a clubhouse sitting out there right now. Okay, what are we gonna do with that?
We would be able to utilize the clubhouse for the RV stuff.
We can be able to utilize it for that. I also think we can utilize it more as, I'm sure you guys have gone to the lake in the summertime and you've seen the really teeny tiny little bar somewhere on the lake that's got a beach volleyball court out there, and their bar is 10 by 10 and ram jam going. You can do that out there. Volleyball leagues, bocce ball leagues, horseshoes, things like that. League nights, keep people going out there and spending money. There's so many different things that I think can be tapped into around here. Heck, you could put a mini golf course out there. There's lots and lots of things you can do. And, it's not that I have some vendetta for this golf course, because I don't. It's a simple, look at the numbers on paper. 2007 is the last year that this golf course made any money. It made $15,000 in 2007. It has not made us a dime since then.
And just for the record, Mike, that was the year that was before we started taking out the loans for the golf course,
That's correct.
Correct. It started losing money before those loans
I
were
know,
taken out.
I just wanted on record saying that, it was because of that, but with your numbers, like you said before, minus all that stuff, every year since, it's still
Yep.
current.
Yeah, and again, like I said, even if you were to pull those numbers out, last year alone, they still would have lost $20-some thousand. So, how many years do we continue on losing $20,000 because the golf course is supposedly such a great thing for our community?
And can you refresh my memory, Christina, who pays the loss of the golf course? What fund comes out and pays for the golf course's loss?
Right now, the resolution that was approved by the council states that the liquor fund revenues or the liquor fund's cash balances covers the loss of the golf course.
Thank you.
I would like to add
Until
to
it
that.
can, until it can pay for itself back.
I would like to add to that before the government math, so to speak, comes in, the loss last year was $43,933. Then we took $17,188 of property tax money and put towards the golf course. We had $2,000 of grant money, $3,000 of miscellaneous money, and then the pond put in $13,615. All in all, the golf course still managed to lose $8,000 after all that money was thrown at it. All that money could sure be going to a lot better things, in my opinion.
just yours.
especially if you've got something out there generating hundreds of thousands of dollars. As far as what the cost is to put this in, there again, it depends on how big you want to go right away. The problem is, if we go, let's say we start small and see what happens. Well, I got to take a hole right away. So I'm going to take hole 3 out of usage right away. So immediately it's going to be down to an 8-hole golf course. No matter what. Just if you guys say, yeah, let's try it. Well, you got to know that 1 hole's coming out right away and then down to 8 holes. My suggestion, if that's the way that you guys want to go, and I understand, I mean, we kind of got to ease into things, figure it out. That first run, I think I figured I could put 35 campers in there on the first run, and it would be pretty much a straight stick of water pipe, a straight stick of sewer pipe. I'm gonna need a lift station, and I'm gonna need some force main to run it to the lagoons, which luckily are close out there. And then obviously we need to figure out what we're gonna do for our water. If we're gonna try to pull it from there or bring it from town. You can kind of do a lot of other stuff that we've talked about in the last few months if you have utilities going out that way.
So just that little bit you're talking about, what do you think it'll cost to establish with electricity, sewer, everything?
For the first 35.
Those stations
A
are
lot of
cheap.
it's gonna depend on what we're doing for water. If we bring water from town, it's gonna cost us more. However, it might not, because water out there with just the pump that's there and the well that's there, I don't know that it would keep up. We might have to do some sort of elevated storage out there. At that point, it's gonna be a lot better just to bring the water from town. To ballpark that,
And
I would guess.
before you try, how do we go about doing
You
that?
gotta you're either gonna levy for it or you're gonna debt for it.
No, I mean, whose
A lot more than what we
land,
think it's gonna be.
whose land do we get to dig up to put in the water? Take water from town and put it out there.
And you're gonna run it through the right away.
Well, you'd be in the right of way
You can
the
do it.
entire way,
And I don't know if. you
just
can
like
even-
our sewer
Can you
is.
put it that close to the sewer line that goes out there?
10 feet of separation,
And that's either left or right or up and down, right?
correct. Which obviously we need to be left and right,
Mhm.
not up and down. However, well, yeah. So if I put 35 of them in the first year, that's 4,000 apiece, about $140,000 of profit the first year. I would hate to just spit a number out right now and be totally wrong, but if the first year and the second year at 140, that's $280,000. I absolutely cannot see it coming anywhere near that much to put in 35 RV sites.
I could see it probably being more than that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You got, let's see, if the water main out there for the campsite, for all of that, being that it's an RV park, so that's the other thing. Once you get the water out there, the water and the sewer then don't need to be deep because they're seasonal. We don't have to worry about them freezing because we can blow that out on a yearly basis. We can get rid of that water that's in those lines. Those lines can go down 2 feet and they can be a 2-inch poly, which is cheap. The sewer, we'd probably run a 6-inch main and probably run 4-inch laterals to keep it cheap because you don't need anything. I mean, most of town I still have 4-inch old sewer in most of town here, so.
Would I be mistaken to assume that hole 3 would be the levelest, flattest, where it's the least amount of dirt you would have to bring in?
No, nothing up there is flat,
It's, as far as being
except the tee
flattest,
boxes and the greens.
probably pretty close,
Okay,
pretty close. And
I mean, I could see you digging into the hills and stuff, but like adding to it.
that's my other thing is that I don't really plan to add to it, but this is again where I need you guys to point me in a direction of what you think you want to do, because I'm not an engineer. I'm not. I can go out and get things done, you know, the only way to get them done, I can sure do it.
Well, having an engineer just to come out and design and figure this out is gonna be more than what we can be before.
I would encourage the board to speak to the city of Big Falls when they improve upon their campground. Not including the $1 million shower house, but the additional pads that they put out for their free ADA sites and their new sites. They ran water and electric to all of them and put in a dump station. That's almost a $5 million project out there.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
they're
This
not
is gonna
done.
end up being millions of dollars.
We wouldn't need a dump station for seasonal.
They do that big.
We're gonna
Just
put
add it to
in,
their
we're gonna put in a
Water and
lift,
sewer lines.
we're gonna put in a lift station and pump it right to the
So we wouldn't need any restrooms as well.
No, there's absolutely no need to have that.
And if you have to blow down lines in the winter,
Air compressor.
I know that,
I'm done.
but so have I, that's what I do.
Oh,
But there's always problems, there's always breaks, there's always digging stuff up, there's always repairing, especially with that show.
There is,
And
and
especially you got 5 years down the road, if you're using PVC, you're gonna expect a break.
you know that PVC is all the water being under all the roads, right? All PVC.
But there's not constantly water going through them. Same with sewer, there's constantly
Mhm.
water going through them.
Yep.
And when you shut these things down, if you don't blow them all right,
Right. Totally understandable. That's where you gotta trust me to do my job. You know? Beyond that, I mean, this is just me coming to you guys. You guys have to make the decision. I mean, I'm not gonna go back and forth. I'm just pitching something that I think is in the long run going to make us money. And you know what? No, we don't have money. We don't. We all know that. But do we try to make money, or do we sit back and keep losing money knowing we're going to keep losing money? Even if this did cost $5 million for some reason, and we're making 800,000 a year off of it, I can take that long to recoup the money. So we don't spend 5 million right away. We put in X amount, we do that for a couple of years until we can get some profit up, and then start putting in some more. You gotta think more long-term
Right.
than just short-term.
Max or Christina, could you refresh my memory? How many years have we been asking the golf board and golf members to bring us ideas to make the golf course more profitable? It's been a few, correct?
1.5.
1.5?
You can't count 20.
Okay, so,
Started in 19 when you guys agreed to fund the shed.
right, no, what I'm saying is we've asked for ideas to make it profitable. I don't care if it ended up being profitable, but we've been asking people to give us ideas for more profitability. How many have we received?
Um,
Gonna go with none.
I know, I mean, that's what I've got. I mean, but you're on a totally different level of
Yeah.
involvement than we are.
So prior to COVID, there was a lot of really great ideas. Just never came to fruition,
Okay.
so.
So I mean, so far, this is the one that's more common sense to a massive amount of profit.
And it doesn't hurt my feelings one way or another if you guys tell me to get lost with it. It's just what I think we can make money at. It's what I know we can. You look around, you've got a camper, I know you do. I don't know about the rest of you, I think you got a camper. You know, you guys go places in the summertime and look at these places. They're just packed, absolutely packed, 10, 15 feet apart. And they're getting $3,500. I mean, it seems pretty simple to me. It's just a matter of how do we fund it and go about it. I mean, I'm not naive to think, oh, money's gonna fall from the sky and this is gonna happen overnight. Something's gotta give somewhere along the lines.
It's gonna be an interesting June 29th meeting.
Yeah. So, to circle completely back after I've pitched my side, I need to know if you guys want me to actually put some time into figuring out how much this is going to cost.
well, do you have extra time, or are you pretty much busy as it is?
You know, I'm always busy.
But you'll make time for that?
Yeah, because this is going to benefit all of town. This is gonna benefit my departments. I can start, years down the road here. And like I said, it's not gonna be overnight that we're sitting flush and pretty, but at some point, we can pave the roads that need paved. We can do the things that we need without raising taxpayer money. We can keep good equipment around and we can move this town in the right direction instead of being stagnant for the last 40 years and being, complicit to say, well, this is just how Blackduck is. This is how we are here.
Does make a lot of sense.
I'll be the first one to say, yes, Mike, I'm on board with your plan.
Just like I said, I just need to know so that I can put time into it, because I'm gonna have to take time away from some of the other things that I do. I mean, I'll get all my stuff done, don't worry about that, but I don't wanna waste my valuable time doing something that is just going to get thrown out when I could be out completing other projects.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with getting some numbers, rough estimates of how much it's gonna cost and what you think we can do.
What do you think of the engineer idea?
Honestly, at some point,
I mean, as you stated, you're not.
that's just it. I mean, I can go out there and I can get, elevations and I can say, okay, water needs to flow this way and this way, but
You don't bite your nails, yeah.
sometimes you just,
You need that in.
maybe somebody to just go out, look at the property quick, look at elevations and say, yeah, we can put this many sites. Lift station's gonna need to be right here, this is gonna be here. I can't imagine on something like this, that the engineering would be nearly what it is on something like the pond renovation or the new water and police facility. I gotta think that this would be a lot easier for those guys when they just have a blank canvas and they got to tell me where to run the water, where to run the sewer, elevations, where the power and the cables.
I think Kurt and Brandon, what's his, Brandon, yeah, I think they run, what is it, 75 and 150 an hour for their engineering fees?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
So I'm just for guide.
And that possibly maybe is the next step after I can get it as far as I can go. Because like I said, I can go out there, I can put a little bit of spray paint on the ground here and there, take my measurements of where I think things should be and
Would we
get
have
it
to
kind
have
of
a
figured out.
surveyor come out too?
What's that?
Would a surveyor have to come out?
I don't know that they would. I mean, we own all the property out there. I don't really see why a surveyor would have to come out as long as we're nowhere near,
And no
a
footings
property
on
line.
heavy building.
no. And that's something that, once we got up to the point of, hey, maybe we need an engineer, that's a great question to ask them. Do we need to be surveyed
Because
for any
usually you
reason?
think that survey property to see where you could put your pond or whatever, no? I mean, just a question.
No, I think, like, as a landowner, basically, like at my house, I could go out and put a building anywhere I want on my property within reason of property lines. They really, no one has a say over where you put something on your own land, especially when you have acreage. Follow what I'm saying? Am I?
Yeah, but you still have to plot it out where each trailer or RV is gonna go. Or you just figure that out yourself?
I see what you're, okay, I know what you're going at now.
Not technically a real survey, but just surveying.
Yeah,
all the plots
okay,
or-
yep, I follow you. Then, yeah, something like that, I would probably want them to come out just because they are used to doing that. It would be us out there pulling a 300-foot tape around.
Right.
I mean, really, it would
Or
be.
they can do it by the satellite.
Exactly. So, yeah, for
Yeah.
something like that, yeah, sorry, I thought you were going more on, like survey the property.
Yeah.
and-
Change names. and
Sure.
stuff.
Yep, then yes, to answer your question.
Got that 800-foot tape over there.
That's what it would be.
See, we're
I'm all for seeing the community actually be able to earn money and build itself up. Like you said, get out of that stagnant
That's really what my pitch is here. It's building the community as a whole.
It's one of those things, I think, Nick, if you're talking about change, this is a big one. And
Oh, yeah.
and there will be,
But if it helps benefit the community and people,
That's
tricky.
all
as a
we have to
whole.
Tell them.
it's
Over and
a,
over.
it's a balance.
right?
I mean, we call the golf course an enterprise fund. It's not.
Oh, speaking of
Because
that,
you guys are all talking about putting it underneath of me.
I was
so
just
that
gonna
it can
say,
get money.
when would we,
If
or would you be willing to?
you turn it into Parks and Rec, it becomes.
No.
I think the community could benefit.
Like that out there. Yeah, well,
Your splash pad.
hey. could have
No, you
all
don't
this-
want kids down there.
Well, if we don't want kids.
Well, you know, I mean-
Well, I'm saying, like he was saying,
You know,
volleyball
you-
court, all that.
You don't want to take
Right,
the whole number 3, that's against the woods, right?
Hole number 3 is on the north end, running from west to east.
That's the one up by the pond, right?
Yep, we would
So-
use the current driveway to come in.
So you'd still have the rest of the golf course.
Correct. You would, like I said, the very first initial run, if we were to do this, depending on how big everyone wants to go right away, hole 3 would be gone. Possibly hole 4 if you wanted to just make a large U shape.
And in all reality, we would end golf.
Yes, you would.
Yes, yes.
You can't run a course
No.
on the seventh.
Well, you can,
You can.
you
They
can.
won't come.
No.
They won't come for it.
There's lots of people that golf executive courses all over the place that are par 3s that are 3 holes, 5 holes.
Really?
Yeah.
They're around.
There are.
They're around. And
That's
again,
interesting.
Yeah,
if
there
you
are.
have this RV park in there and you have these people, it's
I'm gonna go
Something
practice,
for
I'm
them.
gonna go practice 6 holes.
They're
Exactly.
gonna
Gonna
want
do-
something.
By doing that, is you're gonna change the status of that course from a par 3 course that is a golf course to something that is more recreational.
exactly.
That is not a legal golf course, but a recreational golf course.
And I don't,
How often do they do tournaments?
And often as people want.
But the thing is what you're doing with that too, though, you're not gonna be able to, you're not gonna be able to sell those memberships,
No.
those 49 of them. But maybe it'll open it up to be less official, and then more people who live in town will go out and
Exactly.
use it.
exactly, but if it's 3 or 4
So it's not,
holes,
it's intimidating, it's not like, oh, I have to be a golfer.
Beginner type.
yep,
For
it's 3
people
or
that
4
just
holes
wanna
for
go
fun,
Yeah.
for, a couple bucks.
This might open up the eyes of the people in town, that we might shut this down. Or the community in large, that, the word gets out that this might happen and see what happens. I mean,
There's, like I said, there's,
that'll change.
I won't say endless possibility, but there's a lot of possibility with that land out there going with an RV park. And like I said, Christina's right. I mean, as soon as we put the first run in, that golf course is done, as we all know it. It then becomes a recreational 3 or 4 hole, whatever, however it ends up being. Whether your guy puts some disc golf out there too, whatever.
That's getting pretty big nowadays.
I never really thought of that.
Because if you put an RV park out there, you're gonna need to have an amenity that park, that the people that are renting for the whole season are gonna wanna come for.
I
As it's-
honestly, when I thought about it, I thought, no, there's not gonna be a single person that's gonna wanna play on a 4 or 5 weird numbered hole course. And then I got to thinking about the person who wants to wake up every morning, stretch, have their coffee, and look out, and they're waking up on their own private golf course. I
And
think,
because the campsite I stayed at was one of them AOE campsites. It was 149 and it was pumpable.
Mhm. Well, and then we've got the draw out there with, our new beach
Pine Tree
that
Park.
we're constantly looking to improve upon. You've got the boat access right there. Again, like I said, with the different possible amenities that we can put out there, really cheap. I mean, you're talking some volleyball courts or, any of that stuff, using the existing clubhouse, and that's something I could get together with Shonda on for, alcohol and fried food, pizzas, something like that. There's money to be made out there, guys. Money to be made.
It's not gonna be golf, why can't you go disc golf? That's big.
Yeah, it's huge. The midget's
know?
huge.
They're getting another new one.
So is the general consensus that I should put some time into looking at this?
Yeah, because you're gonna wanna have some answers for the 29th.
Mhm.
Once everybody watches this.
Figured as much. Okay.
That's why I didn't wanna be on TV.
I know, he's got
Let's go back here.
So anyway, since Mike's finished up,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you. I have a motion. And second, all in favor? We stand adjourned.
Now you shot.
Nick, did you second? Did you second the adjournment?
I'm so grateful I'm not the only bully in this town anymore.
I want to check.